Hey everyone, it's Peter from Rock Daydream Nation, and I've got Rob Bookter back to the channel. How's it going, Rob?
Going great. Thanks for having me back. It's always a thrill.
Abs- Absolutely. We're going to talk some more Deep Purple, and we're going to talk about an album that came out in 1988 with the reunited Mark II of Deep Purple, Nobody's Perfect. This was a summary of the 1987 tour. It cherry picked certain dates from their Europe and American tour. Came out in 1988. I wouldn't say it did terrifically well in the charts. Rob, you're pretty well familiar with Perfect Strangers, House of Blue Light. Were you familiar with Nobody's Perfect in the day?
You know, I did get to see either Perfect Strangers or House of Blue Light tour. So I got really hard into Purple when Perfect Strangers came out. I knew about them before that album came out, but that one really kind of locked me in pretty good. So I wasn't as familiar with this particular album when it came out. I didn't grab it when it came out because I think House of Blue Light was kind of like a iffy kind of album for me. So I wasn't really too enthused to catch, other releases after that, So
I got this album in the day when it came out. So I got all of the Purple albums, the Mark II reunited. My first impression of this album was, is that it? Is there got to be more? I used to play it a lot, but, I kind of enjoyed it, but I knew deep down in my gut, that there was something missing. It just seemed like there was an element of magic missing, especially when you compare it to Made in Japan, those early 70s. And, you know, the 1984 tour, they played, for most part, really, really well. So there's a bit of a gap. It was a bit of a mystery to me why this album didn't seem to capture that magic, where they had that energy and they were kind of on fire.
I mean, the mix is good. I mean, I won't knock the mix too much. It's a good sounding album. It just feels loose, like it's another loose sounding album. We did the previous episode with the Mark IV lineup with Tommy Bolin, and that album felt very loose as well for different reasons. I mean, this one, yeah, like you said, there's a certain magic that's not there. I think it's just a tightness. There are certain things. There are glimpses of the old days. This is kind of like you mentioned, me in Japan. That's been compared to this release because it's got all the older songs plus the new ones from Perfect Strangers and House of Blue Light. But yeah, I don't know. There's an intangible. Like I think that's a good point you mentioned. Like there's an element there, but you can't quite put the finger on. I don't know if it's just not sonically potent enough. Maybe because of the time period. With the advent of CDs coming out and things like that, there's a loss of quality, perhaps, between like the digital from analog. Maybe there's a loss there. Maybe that's what is not really capturing people is, when you see them live, it's a different ball game, but when it doesn't quite capture, the live experience isn't quite captured from seeing them perform live. So maybe it's a technology issue. That's the problem with these releases around this time is that transfer from analog to digital. So I don't know. I think maybe it's some of that. I'm not really sure, but
Yeah. I think you raised a
so
good point with the word potent.
yeah.
The potent factor, that was the impression. Now, I've got to share a story that there was a lot of anticipation when this album was being talked about, like, oh, Mark II coming together, putting a live album, because Made in Japan has always been regarded as one of the greatest live albums of all time. So even still to this day, when they do live albums of all time polls, it's right up there in the mix. So the story goes, you had all the suits around the table at Polydor,
Mhm.
and they did a listening party. And then at the end of it, you could hear a pin drop. And everyone looked at each other and it was
Well,
like, is that it? So even from the get-go, there was some trepidation about this release. So it didn't set the world on fire. They even brought in a song, which we'll talk about, Hush, the old Joe South number, which was Mark One, which was their huge hit in America. with Ian Gillan on vocals as kind of like a single catch to get people in. Now,
Yeah.
in 1988 was a different world in hard rock and heavy metal. The Shredders ruled the universe. You had a universe of Van Halen. I think Guns N' Roses were probably just around the corner. Hair metal, thrash metal, Metallica. The world was a much different place to the 70s. So you've got this band that had one of the most successful reunion tours. They were number 2 to Bruce Springsteen in 84, but when they came out in 87, it was a lot different. They started to notice that they couldn't fill the stadiums. They were only like 50 to 70% full. Mark O'Neill, who's our friend on this show, he was the last show. He went to a couple of the concerts and they weren't at full capacity. It was a whole different universe this time around. And then there was the personalities. The cracks were starting to show between Blackmore and Gillan again. So there was a lot of behind-the-scenes shenanigans that just didn't make this the total happy experience or unifying experience as a live album document. So, Rob, what we're going to do is we're going to have a bit of a listening party, and I'm going to go over some tracks, and I'm going to play them to you and ask for your commentary. And this will give us a little bit of a way to navigate through the album with 2026 years, what we think of it now, and take it from there. So I think the first song that I'm going to play to you is the opening track, and that is Highway Star. So you would imagine this song really needs to, come out of the gates, really define, this is Deep Purple, Machine Head, this is our signature song. So let's have a play. So this is off Nobody's Perfect. Okay, now I'm going to play Made in Japan from 1972.
Highway Star. Yeah.
Now, the tempo's a bit slower here, Rob. Well, what do you think? Comparing it, what are the differences there to you?
Well, you can definitely hear the youth of the playing and the freshness of the song because it's such a the B version, the second version, the older version was the newer kid in town. In terms of their song. So I think they were trying to do things with even with the later version. You know, this one was more established. It felt more grounded. It sounds a lot better. First off, I mean, I think just the recording means of Made in Japan was such a simple process, so to speak, as compared to Nobody's Perfect. But I think the youthness of the sound and the overall sound is better on the Made in Japan than it is on Nobody's Perfect. That's where the potency comes in.
Yes. And
Yeah.
you know what? There's two things here. The latest version is much more sped up. It's a little bit
Hmm.
heavier, but it's less potent.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Made in Japan, the tempo is ramped back, but there's more potency in it. There's more aggression. It's sort of
Yep.
like it's sitting more in the pocket, and
Yes.
therefore it's more powerful.
Hmm.
So, but the modern version is just much more. Yeah, it comes out of the gates. He does the pace, he does the shuffle. It's sped up, but to me, it's not as powerful. How can this be?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's that whole analog to digital. That first Made in Japan was guy. I forget his name, the mixer, the engineer for that record, sitting in the audience with a tape machine in the
Yeah,
back, upper area,
yeah,
just recording, just very,
yeah.
very simple means. And it's just ridiculous how simple it was for him to sit and record that
Mm,
concert. The venue could have something to do with it. Budokan, as opposed to where all these different venues. Some venues aren't built for the sound. And
well,
depending on volume and so on and
this
so
was
forth.
recorded at Irvine Meadows,
Mhm.
California, in May
Yep.
1987.
Yeah.
Other noticeables is Gillan's voice. There is the
Mhm.
wear and tear. There's a
Yep.
point of conjecture that he did blow his tires out on the Born Again tour.
Oh man.
You can
Yeah.
notice that there is some deterioration, and his vocals are kind of feel in the upper register, sound very pinched,
Hmm.
and especially when he's going for that falsetto, it doesn't feel as convincing. Like
Yeah.
when he's doing this recording in Japan, he's at the top of the universe. He started off in the 70s with Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yeah.
Child in Time was just a doddle in rock, and he could just easily get those falsettos, from 0 to 9 with ease. It just didn't
Yeah.
seem. But with this one, you feel like he's really. Oh, it's like
Yeah.
he's really like doing the push up to get there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if I was in the audience, I'd be sort of willing myself. Oh, I hope he gets it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, it just feels like that. But yeah, I just think this is the problem with the album because it's got to be pow. The first
Yes.
track on the album is got to come out of the gates and it's got to send a statement. And my question is, if they are doing samples from 1987, a world tour, why did they pick that one? You know,
Yeah. I don't know. I mean,
and this is the problem with this album. I really debate whether that they have actually chosen the best song selections across the board for this live album. And I'm just wondering, was it a case that the band couldn't been asked? Was there too much internal bickering that they said, "Oh, we'll just leave it to you"? Roger Glover was the producer on this album,
mhm.
so was it left to Paul Rog to sift through the time, through all the tapes?
Yeah.
He had probably a lot of commitments. So I think if you're going to do a live album, especially in 1988, you've got to make sure you get the very best songs that just
Yeah.
demonstrate, you know, the put your band in the right light. And to me, yeah, it's just baffling. It just doesn't have the same potency. Any other words on this one before we go to the next one?
Yeah, I think like that's a great point you make too with the sequencing of the album. That's really the thing that any live record is known for is the sequence of the songs. Like you said, starting strong. There's got to be a good start. There's got to be a valley somewhere in the middle, and then ending out strong. I think even during the tour they were swapping out songs, so it just didn't feel like a very I guess cohesive maybe is the word. I don't know. It didn't seem to be like a running type of narrative about how the shows are put together. It just feels like it's slapped together, like another slapped together kind of record, you know.
Yeah.
Where just picking and pulling, like you said, Roger had the unenviable task of trying to sort this all out and make a live record out of it, you know, from different countries and whatnot. So yeah, there's a problem there with that, you know. I mean, I would rather just hear a full show from
Yes.
Irvine Meadows or from Oslo or
Yes.
from, you know,
Yes.
Verona. I mean, put on a whole show from one place, you know.
Absolutely. All right. Well, the next track is Strange Kind of Woman. Now, this was the signature song. There's a lot of signature songs, I know, but this is the one where it really highlights the call and response and the spontaneity of Deep Purple. You know, Blackers would do a little melody line, trade off with Gillan. He'd do the vocal line back and forth. I'm going to play you some of this version of Strange Kind of Woman of Nobody's Perfect. Let's share this one. This is the Nobody Perfect version. This is the call and response. I just wanted to highlight that bit. Brings in a little bit of Jesus Christ Superstar. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that performance?
Yeah.
I think this is a song that swings, so it's still got a bit of a swing, but it's, to me, it's very heavy, this version.
Yeah, it definitely is, and the ribbing of yeah, including that quote, you know, the quoting of Jesus Christ Superstar is it feels a little funny. I mean, they do it a few times on this album in various ways, you know. Some kind of weird moments. I'm like, that didn't have to be in there, but yeah, it's interesting.
We're going to talk. We are going to talk about
right.
that, and I think
so just kind of like is the first little glimmer of that for me is like, you know, okay, that I don't think that's really necessary, but you know, to have that bit in there, but you know, that's part of Purple anyway. They quote things whether it's classical or you know,
it swings, but it's a bit.
It does. I love the swing. You gotta love the Ian swing. That's really his thing. That's his bread and butter, you know.
Yeah. But the call and response, again, you hear in Ian's vocal, to me, he's pushing it out. There's he's pushing out a lot of air. And to me, it's not as easy. And, you know, it's probably the age he was. Let's face it, he was middle age. To get to those high notes, you've got to exert yourself a lot harder. So compare that to Made in Japan, where it's a lot smoother. But it's not a bad song. It's not a bad version. It's probably a little bit on the heavier side. To me, the whole 70s with the Made in Japan was not so heavy. It was more on the hard rock. And I think that Blackmore's playing on this album with Nobody's Perfect was maybe he was hearing a lot of what was happening in the world of rock. And I've got to play harder, faster, shred a bit more. Not that he ever shreds, but just work the audience. To me, I don't know whether it goes in the category of trying too hard, but he was definitely going that extra level, pushing it out a lot more.
Yeah, different effects, using different effects, the reverb, the delay, which is pretty cool. I mean, he didn't overdo it, but yeah, there is something like you said. That's a great point you bring up that he is trying to, which he didn't even have to do anything in terms of finding his place, in what was happening. He could just been Blackmore, and that's it. That's really the thing. When you hear Richie Blackmore, you hear that name, it's like you just know what you're gonna get. So for him to kind of
Mm,
push that, where
yeah,
he's got to sort of prove something to the world of guitar. I think I don't think he didn't need to do that. If that was the thing, and I think even talking about Perfect Strangers and in House of Blue Light, in retrospect, him talking about it, he said we probably better off just doing Perfect Strangers and that's it. So there's a bit, like you said, the infighting in the beginning of the episode. There's a little bit of cracking starting to happen. I think that's part and parcel to even Richie feeling like he's being forgotten and pushed into the discount bin, so to speak, of guitar playing, which he's got plenty in the tank even at this point.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Next song I'm going to showcase is Space Truckin'. So this one, I'm going to show the difference between Nobody's Perfect, which was recorded in concert in Oslo, Norway in August 1987, comparative to Made in Japan.
Come on, you mothers. I can't hear. Well, we haven't got a lot of convenience. We always had a lot of us. We deal with all the good people. We rock the Milky Way so far. Been around the boring Alice. The space trucking round the stars. Come on! Come on! Come on! Let's get space trucking! Come on! Come on! Come on! Yeah!
Okay, Made in Japan. See if you can pick the differences. Love that bass sound. Kind of got a bit of starch. Pipey.
Well, we had a lot of convenience. We always had a ball of love, yeah. We beat the all the grooving people. We rock the Milky Way so far.
Well,
Yeah. Wow.
what do you think? What are the...
Ah. Yeah. It's like in the beginning of No One's Perfect, Nobody's Perfect. Where's Richie? It took a minute. I don't know if he's having technical difficulties or he was leaving space for the band. He was non-existent for a second. Then he was too loud in the mix, so it was like too much Richie from no Richie.
Yeah,
So it seemed like, I don't know if someone was.
but in Made in
Yeah.
Japan, he comes in late.
Yes.
He does come in late. But I understand
Yeah.
what you're saying. But yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's completely different animals. I mean, I just love the Made in Japan sound. It's just so much tighter. And again, potency is that running point that we're making. It just sounds better. It doesn't seem very cluttered. Like Nobody's Perfect has a very cluttered type of sound too. There's a lot going on. So that's a big detraction, I think, too, with like getting to the potency of the recording. There's a lot of stuff happening. Roger's bass sound is killer. He's playing the Rick, with fuzz on it and whatnot. So it's very distinctive. So the drums always sound great. Keys always sound great. And I prefer Made in Japan version to Nobody's Perfect.
Yeah.
Miles apart.
I agree with you, miles apart. But I've got to raise the Pacey's drumming. I
Mm-hmm.
think his drumming on the Nobody Perfect is not great.
Yeah.
And there's some drum fills that he's missing.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, there's going to be a few commenters that are going to come on and go, you don't know anything about drums. What are you talking about? It's just to my naked ears that
Right. No,
he's missed some
it's definitely
fills.
loose.
Where
Yeah.
is the fire in the belly of his playing? Now, I know Ian Pace, when he was in Whitesnake, changed his drumming style and he
Mm.
simplified a lot. But to me, he's just doing a constant drum beat on Nobody's Perfect. But in Made in Japan, you had these little intricate fills in between that gave it much more potency. That seems to be the word of the clip,
Right.
and a lot more kick. You know, there was
Yes.
more fire in the kick drum.
Yeah.
So that's missing. You know, is this a symptom of him simplifying his drumming? But you know, that's one thing, you know, that I loved about Pacey in the early 70s. His drumming was phenomenal, and it was all these little intricate fills that he'd do in between the notes. So
Yeah.
that's the thing that kind of sticks out to me in regards to it. I think
Yeah.
it's a bit
Tightness isn't quite
messy.
there.
Blackers
Mhm.
comes in on Nobody's Perfect, and he plays a little bit of a rhythm, and then he does this little chord, little melody line that's kind of like at right angles. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just seems a little bit more messy. But Made in Japan, it's in your face. It feels intimate. You can hear the audience clapping. The
Yeah.
audience in this album seems quite remote. It seems like a
Yeah.
couple of degrees of separation, and that's fatal in a live album. You want to
Yeah.
hear the experience.
Yeah, you're not getting that on this one for sure. It's like it just feels like yeah, definitely a disconnect. There should be some kind of bonding agent. You know, live is live. You know, you got to hear everything. You know, so I don't know. I think it's just a product of maybe crappy stage volume, poor mix. Could be from front of house. It could be any reason that it doesn't come across. The mix is not quite right. You know, like I said, the audience, you can't really hear them. You know, they're there. I mean, but it's not. You know, you don't feel it. Like you said, the
Is thi-
remoteness is there. Yeah.
is this the best that they could come up with in
No,
1987? Seriously, is this the best?
I don't.
That's what I'm questioning. Was
Yeah.
there something behind the scenes that was, let's get it out, let's get it done, let's not
Hmm.
do too much of a discovery?
Yeah.
Because it would take time if you're going to sift through all the shows that were recorded, and I'm sure that there was more than 3 or 4 shows that recorded. They recorded many more. It just requires somebody put the headphones out and just simply pick the best. I think this is a bit of a rush job.
I feel that too. I feel it's very slapped together, and
Yeah.
it's like not very thought out. You know, it
Mm.
could have just been an obligation contractually. Who knows, right? So
Yep, absolutely, absolutely.
yeah.
Now, the next topic I want to bring up is Ian Gillan, the front man. I've got an issue on this album. I think that it's too jokey. There's
Yes. Yes.
too much stage patter that's jokey, that's weird. Did you see the Buddy Holly story? And then he'll
Yeah.
sing "That'll Be the Day," and then he'll go
Hmm.
into another. Um, you didn't hear this in the 70s.
No.
I know through Gillan tour that you know, he developed a little bit of a stage persona that was wisecracking jokes. But I'll put it to you: do you think Robert Plant would be doing stage patter like this? Do you think even Ozzy, you know, would ever go into this sort of weird stage patter? I don't think so. I think you've got to treat the material with reverence.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're going off on a tangent and being super jokey, then to me it's annoying,
Yeah.
and it does devalue the material. Am I being a little bit conservative here, Rob Bookter?
Not at all. I mean, I think that's the thing with you know, the Come Taste the Band tour. Going back to that episode briefly, he was drawing the audience in, Coverdale, you know, and Hughes to an extent. So that was a big thing to fill because you just coming off of Ian Gillan, who was a big, you know, stage persona at that time. Now David Coverdale's coming in after Ian Gillan. He's got to fill that role. So I think on Nobody's Perfect, that's the thing that's missing too, is that he's not pulling the audience in. that banter about teddy bears having a picnic before a bad attitude. Like, dude, skip that. I don't think you need that.
Why?
It's kind of silly.
Why did
You
they
know,
include it? Let's
I
hear some
don't know.
stage. Let's hear some stage patter. I put together a little
Yeah,
compilation called the Best
yeah.
of Ian Gillan's Stage Patter on Nobody's Perfect. So let's have a listen.
Hi, thank you. Thank you very much. Cheers. That was Perfect Street Wranglers. Oh, I don't know how they did today. Anyone know the results? Oh, fantastic. We won 2-0. That's amazing. Who are we playing? Who are we playing? This song is about a lump with... there's nothing personal. It's nothing to do with sex or anything like that. But, no, seriously. No, I'm not that kind of guy. But this is... She had great tits. And it's all about this unmentionable woman's thing called fucking hard-loving woman. Thank you.
And some more.
If you go down to the woods today,
Just what you're
you
referring
better
to.
go in disguise. Sure of a big surprise. For all the bears that ever there were, I gathered there today because today is the day the teddy bears have their picnic. And it was a rock and roll picnic. It was. And they drank stuff out of green bottles. And it got tiddly. And this one is all about how they felt the next day. It's called... Well, how did you know the key? I mean, let's not be in carpet all our lives, shall we? I suppose you think you know what's coming next, don't you? Well, write it down and let me know, because I haven't got a clue. All right.
Well, there you go. There's a lack of professionalism. It's too jokey. It takes a valuable time. I think if I combined all the stage patter, you could have squeezed an extra song. And to me, I rate Deep Purple as one of the holy trinity of British heavy metal. And to me, it's jokey and it kind of devalues it. Look, I know Ian Gillan's a larger-than-life character, a bit of a rogue, bit of a rascal. And he definitely developed that thing in Gillan and maybe Black Sabbath. But don't do this in Deep Purple. And I think this is where the animosity is between him and Blackmore. Blackmore got the shits because he'd be looking at Gillan dicking around and, maybe not singing the right song or a bit out of key. And that's where it got like that.
Yep.
So
forgetting lyrics was a big problem for Gillan. That was a contentious point for Ritchie, is Ian not remembering words, or repeating something, and it happened on this album as well. And the woman from Tokyo, during that song, that's when they go into the whole Buddy Holly thing, right? Like, I don't think we need that. Watching the Buddy Holly story, yada yada yada. So they could have edited that stuff out, all this banter could have been easily taken out and just present the songs. I think if they had that part of it together, where you just play the songs, on this recording, no banter, no nothing, and then tweak the sound, do a better mix on it. I don't know. Like you said, like who was involved in this, like I think the title of the album is apt, Nobody's Perfect. I think whoever's involved with this wasn't perfect at all.
Why would you call an album Nobody's Perfect? Because you're setting yourself up for fail.
Right. Yeah.
Can you mention the critics in Rolling Stone? Nobody's Perfect. Certainly not this album. 1 star.
Right. Yeah.
The rule of rock and roll is if you're going to do an album title, make sure it's critic proof and it doesn't have a smart ass response from a critic.
Yeah.
But
and then they pinned it on Ritchie, that Ritchie named the album. That was one thing I seen between Roger and John, whose idea was to come up with the title of the album. And they said Ritchie.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't know how true that is, but to them, they were there. So I guess that's true. I don't know.
Well, the narrative has always been Ritchie's the bad guy. Ritchie's the dark horse. I'm sorry. I think Ian Gillan's the problem with this album.
Mm-hmm.
I think his vocals are average.
Mm-hmm.
And... like he does acquit himself quite well, like on songs like Child in Time, Lazy. Actually, this album, side 3. So side 3 is Child in Time, Lazy, Space Trucking, I'm not too fussed about. But that's
Yeah.
probably the highlight of the album when they get down to basics and there's less chit chat and they just
Yeah.
roll up the sleeves.
Right.
But yeah, there's just too much mindless chit chat, and it's just he thinks it's funny, but it's not actually. It's kind of lots of in jokes, and I'm just thinking this may have been the catalyst for Richie really getting. I've had enough, and Richie's
Yeah.
been in many interviews that he sort of was taking umbrage with the professionalism of Ian Gillan. You know, where
Yeah.
he'd be out on the Terps the night before,
Hmm.
and you know his voice wasn't in great shape, and yeah, Richie's playing his heart out. So maybe that's a reason why he's really playing, and maybe slightly overplaying and pushing
That's
it
a good
too
point.
hard because he can see that Ian Gillan's struggling, so he's got to
Yeah.
do that little bit extra.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like when I mentioned before that Richie was a little too loud. I think that's lavish to cover up, Ian's difficulty. So yeah, there's some masking going on. I think for good reason. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. But like I bought this when I was 18 or
Hmm.
thereabouts, and this goes into my reservations, the jokiness of it. And I'll say it again. Do you think Robert Plant in Led Zeppelin reunion or even Ozzy would go to the extremes of some of this, this stage patter? I don't think so.
No, no, it's they would draw the audience in more than what's happening here on this record. So
Yep. Okay.
yeah.
All right. Let's play some more. Let's see where it leads us.
Yo!
And there's more. Now, I played this, and you're wondering why he blew a tire on his voice. Like this call and response. Yo. There's a lot on this album where you can sort of detect that the band is trying really hard. Like Gillan's revving it up. He's doing wolf whistles. He's doing the yo. To me, it sort of sounds like, okay, we're doing a live album and I've really got to rev up the crowd. If you're playing well, you don't need to rev up the crowd.
Right.
They didn't really necessarily do this on Made in Japan. All the greatest live albums, the Who live at Leeds, they don't have to go to it's to me, they're resorting to, they're trying too hard. He's trying too hard
Yes.
to engage with the audience. And,
Mhm.
I don't know the visuals, but what I hear, I think there's something missing.
Yeah, and it's not a good sound. It's just that the mix is horrendous. I just don't like the mix, and it's hard to get into an album when the mix is not great. It
Yeah,
just doesn't have
yeah,
a character to it. There's no character. It's just very thin and papery.
yeah, yeah.
So
What about the new material? So you've got Hard Loving Woman,
mhm.
Bad Attitude.
Yeah,
What do you think of those songs?
I rather have bad attitude in there than Hard Love of a Woman. I don't like that. I never liked that song on that record. Mitzi Dupree is another song I'm glad they didn't put on this because I don't
Oh,
really care for that one at
yeah.
all. So, Bad Attitude, I like it a bit more. It's got heaviness to it. It's a
Bit of
heavy tune.
crunch, a
It's
great
crunchy.
riff. Probably the
Yes.
best track off the House of Blue
Yeah.
Light. I like
Yeah.
that. Hard Loving Woman is a bit thin. I don't like the
Hmm.
keyboard sound because
Yeah.
I think the thing that marred that album was that John Lord was using a lot of modern synthesizers,
Yes.
and it sort of it kind of stuck out. It
Yeah.
kind of there was it didn't seem to mesh well with the traditional hard rock 70s sound of Deep Purple, and it kind of dates the album. Like if you're playing that's why classic rock doesn't date, because it sounds that last a long time. If you're using technology that is attuned to a particular moment in time, then it kind of carbon dates it to that particular era, and that's why I've never been a big fan of Hard Loving Woman.
It's definitely it doesn't help the cause at all for sure. You
Yeah.
know.
Um, Look, Black Knight's fine. Smoke on the Water. What do you think of that? Their version.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, again, the sound is just the thing that really just sinks it for me. You know, I mean, I'm glad that you have to play it if you're Purple, you have to play that song, and then
Or there'd
hearing
be a
the entire
riot.
story. Yeah, you have to have it. It's required. So you know, but yeah, I just don't care for the overall sound like they put out with this. You know, I think, like I said, they could do much better. You know, than this version. You know, it's okay. It's not doesn't light the world on fire. You know, so
Yeah. Well, there we have it for the live part. So I think we both agree it doesn't have the potency that it should. A lot of it comes down to the sound, and I think what we are challenging, are these truly the best versions of the songs that were recorded on this tour? I don't think so.
yeah,
I think
no,
maybe
I
they were
mean,
looking at a very shallow pool of shows and whether it was
yeah,
a rush for production. The last point I want to make before we wrap this up is I want to talk about Hush, which is
mm,
it's a tacked on song. It was released as a single. There's no groove to this song. So
no,
the original Hush had drama, it had groove, dynamics, but this one is just flat. And again, you don't sort of think Ian Gillan's taking it seriously because right at the end of the song, he makes a fart noise. He
yeah,
blows a raspberry. So
right, right.
it's
Like,
like,
let's keep that in there. It's like, you know,
what do you think of
uh,
this song?
it sticks out like a sore thumb. You know, I mean, it's live in the studio, I guess, right? So, and they want to have a little bit of fun, you know, with the song, and I guess that was the end game, is that try to have some fun. But I think it's at the expense of a good album. You know, I mean, I love the song "Hush." It's a great tune. Like I said, those qualities you just mentioned are not really in this. It's a different singer, obviously, of course, but still, you mentioned reverence before. That's a really good word. Like, you should have reverence for the material. It deserves respect. And I just, I don't feel it in this particular. I don't know. They could just left it off. I don't know why they had to have it on there. I guess that's, like I said, it's like making it a complete, even numbered. I don't know.
I think it's
Whatever the
album.
reasons are, it doesn't make any
I,
sense.
I think it's album bait.
Yeah.
And this got released as a single, didn't do any
Right.
business. It tanked, and just
Hmm.
to lure people in. But
And the video that came out
yeah,
too with the
but
girl, and then the cars and all that stuff. So
it's really sluggish because the original one has groove and drama, and this just plugs along. I mean, I like the harmonica bit. That's probably
the
the
harmonica's
one of
great. Yeah.
the saving grace. So,
Yeah.
well, there you have it, Rob. We've covered Nobody's Perfect. So, one more thing: the album cover. To me, we're in the era of AI. This
Mhm.
album cover looks AI before it was AI.
It does. Right. Yeah. It does. Yeah.
You know, let's put some
Hmm.
inanimate objects in the air
Just
that have
floating.
absolutely no meaning. Well, they probably have
Yeah.
meaning. They probably have connections to the song if they're really,
Yeah.
really deep. And you open up the album, and there's all these sort of funny photos on the road, which I will put up. Ian Gillan's got a cigarette in his nose, and they plenty of photos that he looks like he was, at the bar.
The teddy
Yeah,
bear is drinking out of those green bottles. That's basically what
yeah,
the band probably is. It's probably more autobiographical than a story
yeah.
to start a song.
This Yeah, it's too loose, it's too
Mm.
jokey,
Yeah.
and I don't think this did Deep Purple's legacy any good. If they did a killer album and a killer live album, that would have enhanced their reputation, and they would have been on an uptick. But I think this really set the dice for the rest of what Deep Purple did after this. They disintegrated. Gillan left the band or was fired. Jolene Turner slaves and masters, and then sort of who was in the band, who wasn't. I think they
Yeah.
lost America basically because of the
Yeah.
lineup changes, and this album I think contributed to it because it's not a good document of how great Deep Purple were because they're a great live band, but this is not the document.
No.
Any final words from you, Mr. Bukta?
Yeah. I mean, it's an important album for the history of the band, of course. It's, I mean, to not own it you know, I think it's good to have it in your possession, just because there are moments that are really really good. It's not all horrendous, but mostly. So, but I think it's good to have it as your in your, you know, collection of purple albums. So I wouldn't skip over it, but I think it's a good one to have.
Yeah, look, for completists only, I think it's bottom tier. It's
Yeah,
it's not a
exactly.
great document. So there you
Yeah.
have it. Thank you, Mr. Bukta. Always a
Thank
pleasure
you,
to have
sir.
you on the show.
Yeah,
We're
good to
going
be
to
here.
do more Deep Purple in 2026 with Rob. Please share your comments, good, bad, and indifferent. We don't mind. Seriously, you know, you might say you don't agree with it. That is all good. We love reading your comments. Please like and subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation, and there'll be more shows in 2026 and beyond. As I said, all the best and cheers.